My name is Moon Petrie, and I'm finally going to answer your questions. Thanks so much to everybody who did ask a question when I requested them. And everybody that I am going to be responding to today does have their own AuthorTube channel. So all of their links will be down below. If you somehow haven't found them yet, check them out. EA Universe asks, I would love to know your writer routine, especially when you're a mother. Maybe some tips for writing with a tight schedule. Something Cynthia Payne has mentioned on her channel. She is also a mom. Taking the time to do whatever else you can while the kids are awake. So anything you can squeeze in broken bits and pieces, but it's okay to get interrupted, like editing a video, any just regular tasks, paying bills, whatever you can squeeze in while the kids are awake makes it so that you have fewer things that are critical to accomplish only when they're actually asleep. When you need to have that creative space, you need time, you need quiet so that you don't lose your flow. Asking for help can be hard to do, but can be really, really beneficial, whether that's hiring a babysitter, asking spouse, partner, family member, somebody, whether that's to give you time to actually write or to give you time to get those other things done so that you'll have your writing time when you need it during the hours of unconsciousness of your small ones. Or time, if you have an IRL writers group, which I do, to make sure you can do those things that make you feel like you're on track, you're doing something, you're part of something, and you're getting it done. But the most important thing is to be ready to go when they fall asleep. To have eaten, not be needing to eat first thing. Sometimes that means taking time when you just have a few seconds to know what you're doing next, or have done brainstorming, or getting your documents open, or anything you can do to be absolutely ready to go the second they fall asleep. And motivation is the biggest one. I don't know how to help people with that because it is such an individual thing. So just feeling like I gotta do this. Now's my chance. I can't wait. I'm gonna do this. Whatever it takes to get you in that space. That is what helps me the most. Phoebe Wood Writes asks, what's your biggest, wildest dream for your writing? So that's a kind of a deep question, kind of a personal question, and one of those things where, you probably have these thoughts of like, oh, wouldn't it be amazing if, and you tell yourself not to dwell on it, not to keep thinking it, and partly it's totally unrealistic. Don't get your hopes up. Partly don't jinx it. But for me, my dream would be to see my traditionally published books in a library. A really nice review in a library journal would be amazing. I will say though, if I had the kind of success where I had money that I didn't actually need, I would donate to libraries, and maybe organizations like the Harry Potter Alliance, which work on literacy and availability of books to underprivileged kids. The number one predictor of literacy in children is the number of books in the home, and as long as you're going to the library all the time, you don't actually have to own those books in order for your kids to have that advantage. So libraries are everything to me. Kevlandia asks, what writers inspired you when you were younger? I think there are so many ways that a writer can inspire you. I think that just getting excited about books, or getting excited about the genre, or falling in love with someone's writing style or voice are all just such fantastic experiences, and they can be very unique from each other. And the way I'm going to choose to answer this question is, what books or what writers made you want to be a writer? And that's books about books and books about writers, more than almost anything, because Narnia. Lucy Maud Montgomery's books are fantastic about the experience of trekking out to the mailbox to get your rejection letters over and over. There's a great Christopher Pike book about a teenager who was like a best-selling author secretly, and I think it was called Master of Murder. But being that I am obsessed with fantasy and obsessed with books, there's this amazing cross-section where writers explore the boundary between the writer and the work. So Stephen King's The Dark Half, for example, or obviously Cornelia Funke's Inkheart series are just incredible at making books more real. Jasper Fforde, Lost in a Good Book, or The Air Affair. If you have not heard of any of these, they all sort of explore what happens if the boundaries aren't so clear-cut between the world that we live in and the world of fiction. So those I just find crazy inspiring. Audrey Henley asks, how did you start writing and when did you know you wanted to be a writer? So I don't remember not wanting to be a writer. In second grade, I wrote lots of stories about my pet rabbit, in which she wore bows on her ears. I had learned by then, not a thing that house pets actually appreciate. As far as when I knew I wanted to be a writer, the thing that I can definitely pinpoint is that in fourth grade, we had to do a project about what we wanted to be when we grew up. And a lot of us had no idea. But there's no question for me, I was absolutely going to be a writer. And so I did this poster of myself, picture of myself. Now, at the time, I had this very ill-considered pixie cut that caused me to be misgendered a lot. I hated it, a few days after I got it. So I drew a picture of myself with super long hair, sitting at a desk writing, with a baby napping beside me. So, yeah, not that long ago, I was sitting at a computer. There was no computer in this picture, but I believe there was a candy dish. All about the candy dish when I was little. That's what I thought adulthood was, control over the candy dish. So recently I was sitting at my computer and there's this low down mirror in my living room so that little ones can play dress up and look at themselves. And I just happened to catch my reflection in the mirror, this super long hair and writing and little ones napping upstairs, and I thought, oh my goodness, I did it, I have achieved the dream. Along those lines, It Got Weirder, her name is actually Sarah Grace, her channel is It Got Weirder, asks 2 questions, one writing and one personal. How long have you been writing? I was 10 and it was like a short, sort of a early elementary chapter book. Never revised, but written from an outline, so it actually kind of made sense. And when I was 12, a teen thriller, again, never revised. That one was pantsed. So those are the first endeavors I felt like I completed. But I spent a long time writing shorter things, occasional terrible poetry, short stories, and doing tons and tons and tons of brainstorming and developing worlds and character backgrounds and very intensive planning and never actually even beginning things. So I did that for many years before I started actually writing novels, with an adult brain, adult capacity for recognizing that I needed to revise. And her personal question is a great one, and for this you might want to know that she is a recent high school graduate. She's actually homeschooled, which is super cool. I was too. When you were first entering adulthood, was the life you have now what you imagined for yourself? I mean, what an amazing question. So, no. When I was just turning 18, unfortunately, I think I defined my goals more by what I didn't want. I didn't want to go to college right away. I didn't want to stay in the town where I'd been living or any small town at all. Although this is Vermont, that's all we have. So I mostly tried not to do the things that I didn't want to do, and that didn't give me great direction, sort of navigating by what I was trying to avoid. I didn't realize at the time that that's what I was doing so much. However, as I said, I was spending a lot of time creating groups of characters. I did have a lot of settings, a lot of families that, maybe it was in doing this that I was actually exploring what I wanted. So, chaos, messy big families, having a bunch of kids were major themes in those things that I was brainstorming at the time. So on some level, I guess I did know what I wanted when I was 18, but not as clearly as I did when I was 9, obviously, and doing the What Will You Be When You Grow Up project. So maybe check in with your 9-year-old self. Maybe they have a better idea of what you should do with your life than your current 18-year-old self. I don't know. Joey Cron asked, where do you get your inspiration? Which I didn't know how to take. I asked, do you mean where do I get my ideas, or how do I stay inspired to work on them, or what fills my creative well? And Joey said, I meant how do you get inspired to keep it up and continue writing? But I would love to hear about all of them. So my inspiration, my ideas is, I feel like my camera just keeps slowly sliding. Woo, that's different. I feel like that's closer to where we started. Where do I get my ideas, or what inspires the start of something is usually setting related. So my spark will be heavily entrenched in the place. How do I stay inspired and keep plugging away? That's the hardest thing to answer, isn't it? So I do set goals. I set somewhat flexible goals most of the time. So I build in wiggle room, and then I also, when I make a to-do list, I put things on it like start working on this or get something done about that. So it's not finish this or you don't get to check off this box. So that is very encouraging and helpful for me. And I do love to make lists. And then I have real limited time, and I feel like the vast majority of my life, although it's super, super rewarding, is just caught up in this very immediate, somebody pooped, or, you know, the food on the stove is gonna burn while you're trying to deal with the cat who's misbehaving in the other, you know. So everything just sort of requires that kind of immediate attention from me. So it's just kind of the mindset I'm already in. That probably helps, and it feels precious, the time that I do have to work on this stuff. And I do want to make the progress that I can while my kids are still of an age to nap, which is not a glorious stage that lasts forever. So trying to make hay while the sun shines, as they say. They don't say that, do they? Anyway, obviously failed to mention, big fan of Laura Ingalls Wilder when I was little. And then I do things like my star stickers. I track my word count in my, I hesitate to call it a bullet journal because it's, you know, I try to be disciplined, the no Netflix until you meet your goal. Accountability with YouTube has been hugely helpful. So all of those things, and just this sense like that I futzed for long enough. I spent years on my last book, and just like the first draft, and I don't want to do that anymore. I want to feel like stuff is getting accomplished. Now that I know that I can write a book and I can revise it until it's really a lot like a book, I don't want to sit around not doing that if that's a thing that I can do. So I don't know that helps at all. What fills my creative well? So reading, try not to read stuff that's too closely similar, but I still do read a lot of YA fantasy, stuff that, at least from the flap, seems like it'll be different. And then kids are hugely inspiring. So they say amazing things. They think about the world in a different way. Everything is fresh. Everything has so much potential, is so open-ended. They don't make assumptions based on the experiences they've already had because their experiences are so limited. So they just think that anything is possible. Literally, this is many years ago now, my oldest thought that with a cape you could fly. That's all it took. Just a costume cape and you would be able to fly. So that kind of way of looking at the world is contagious and I love it. So that really fuels my ability to look at things in a fresh way or to get excited about small things that I notice in the world. And Nina's Nook asks, what genres have you written? So this is an easy question. I have only ever finished and revised long-form fiction that is not just fantasy, but specifically portal fantasy. So would I write other things? Absolutely. Have I written other things? Yes, but either when I was a lot younger or much shorter pieces. So in terms of novels, I am all about the portal fantasy. I love YA and middle grade, so I would definitely write middle grade portal fantasy too. That was actually my intention at the outset with my previous book, but it was not that. It turned out not to be that, but I would love to write middle grade as well. So yeah, all about the portal fantasy. So until next time, I am Moon Petrie, and thank you so much for all of your questions. Don't forget, links below to everybody that I've mentioned.